partners in this effort. And but I want to make sure that I acknowledge the fact that this is really a regional effort to put this event together. And I want to give a quick shout out at the beginning today to our partners in this big table, Greater Peoria. I'd like to thank the East Peoria Chamber, the Morton Chamber and EDC, the Greater Peoria EDC, the Peoria Chamber, the Black Business Alliance, the Peoria Hispanic Chamber, Discover Peoria, the Washington Chamber, the CEO Council, the Peoria Heights Chamber, and the Pekin Area Chamber, all integral partners in making this happen, along with so many others who either represent organizations or have just volunteered their time and energy to this very important discussion. So today we're talking about workforce and education, and our presenters today is the president at Illinois Central College, Dr. Sheila Quirk Bailey, and the president of the Tri-County Urban League, Ms. Laraine Bryson. So we have a great conversation. You've heard enough from me. Thank you so much for tuning in. I will pass it over to you, Dr. Quirk Bailey.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you so much, Josh. We are excited this morning to give an update on the progress that has been made in workforce and education since our last big table. So what has happened since then is we have created the Regional Workforce Alliance. And what that alliance does is it brings together all of the stakeholders in our region, just like we have stakeholders here at the big table this morning. So that includes education, community-based organizations, economic development groups. And what we're doing is we're coming together to work with high school graduates, the under-credentialed, and people who have multiple barriers to becoming credentialed. And we're making sure that those adults receive the credentials they need that are aligned with workforce gaps in our region, so our region can reach the 60% credentialed adult level. Right now we're at 40%. So the good news is there's a lot of opportunity for people to move forward with their lives and a lot of opportunity to credential people in areas where jobs are available. The structure of the Regional Workforce Alliance, and again, this includes businesses, the CEO Council, community-based organizations, educators. We've organized ourselves around the 3 distinct markets of need in order to get to the 60% in our region. So the first area is that of the emerging workforce. So making sure that all of our high school graduates are college and career ready. The next group we focus on is the upskilling group. So these are folks who may have already be working. In fact, some of them are working 2 or 3 jobs, but they don't have the credential they need in order to earn the family sustaining wage and get a full-time job with benefits. And then the final group in our community that we're focusing on is the multi-barrier group. And you'll hear Laraine speak about this in a second. And these are folks who may have multiple challenges that they need to deal with before they can become credentialed, but this group is making sure they're removing every barrier. So that's how we've structured ourselves. We have over 80 active organizations in the Regional Workforce Alliance. So we're just going to take a moment to share with you what each of these groups are doing quickly. So in terms of the emerging workforce, first of all, I just need to share that Beth Kreider was going to do this and had a family situation come up this morning. So I'm pinch hitting here, but we missed Beth this morning. The focus of this group really starts with K-6 in terms of exposure to different careers. And then in middle school, it focuses on career exploration. And then in high school, it actually moves on to career experiences as well as college credit. The idea here is that if you can't see it, you can't be it. So how do we systemically in this region make sure students see and can experience different career options while they are coming through our K-12 system? The major partners here are apprenticeship programs, trade schools, the unions, higher education, and all the community-based organizations that also provide credentials. It doesn't matter where those credentials come from. We want to move people forward and get them the credentials they need to earn those family sustaining wages. The members of this group include business leaders, educators, and post-secondary institutions. The key partners, however, are Northern Illinois University, which has provided some research and some pathways guidance to the group, as well as the national organization College Changes Everything. The projects that this group is continuing to move forward on include Career Spark, the Discovery Manufacturing Career Expo, huge expansion of high school internship models, and there's a new state college and career readiness framework called PACE, which actually lays out different activities across K-12 to make sure students graduate college and career ready. And so this group is focusing on how do you take that guidance and actually apply it in the 32 districts that we serve in this region. So very productive group, very successful group, and a lot of wonderful news for everyone here to understand the progress we've made, or this group has made in the last year. So the second group is the upskilling group, and this group is chaired by Don Schaefer from PNC and President Jamel Wright from Eureka College. And what this group focuses on is taking the underemployed or under-credentialed adult with solid work experience and helping them obtain credentials where we have workforce gaps, and focusing on industries where those jobs paid at least 30% above a living wage. So tremendous progress with this group again over the last year, and the projects that we are most excited about that is piloting right now is called GPEAK. So GPEAK is a regional essential abilities and knowledge system. So think of the old soft skills on steroids. The purpose of the GPEAK system is to measure an individual's to demonstrated essential skill application. So when these folks enter the workforce, we have a way that not could they just answer questions on a quiz about being responsible, but they've demonstrated that along the way and earned some badges. And then the other part of this is the system validates and communicates this information in a manner that's recognized by employers and education to make sure we have a way to credential and validate these skills across our region. This was the #1 concern of businesses in a survey taken 2 years ago in terms of making sure these skills exist. So here you can see the major community partners that were involved. We had federal partners like JFF and the Northern Illinois System Center, as well as our regional players. And then when we say over 85 committee members and organizations, you can get a quick view there of who's been involved. So it's been a tremendous effort. And what GPEAK does, again, essential employability skills and a way to measure that performance. It also involves curricular resources that are being piloted now that will be made available to all agencies across this region who are doing work in workforce. So that's available to everyone. And then we're also piloting a certification system and delivery platform. So below what you see are the 10 areas of competencies that people will earn badges on individually. And once all the badges are earned, they then become GPEAK certified. So again, these are the areas that employers help us define, and we are creating the resources to share for free across our region to make sure we can certify people in essential skills. And with that, let's hear from Laraine Bryson about the wonderful things going on with the multiple barriers group. Laraine.
Thank you, Sheila. I am pleased to work with Dr. Rita Ali and co-chair this committee. And we're actually trying to work with the people, and we want to uplift them to kind of move them through a continuum of services. Our focus is on adults who move in and out of community-based organizations and different support systems, but they have very little credentials or work experience, and we want them to qualify for entry-level job stabilization. Our goal is to help these individuals that experience multiple barriers throughout their life to gain the required certifications that they need to obtain to obtain gainful employment and or to increase their income. And we work with them on various different strategies to do that. We focus on case management and assessment. We try to track their progress. We provide job coaching to them, life skills and financial literacy training. Some individuals also might need literacy, pre-GED or GED instruction. And we also provide supportive services to try to eliminate some of those barriers that our individuals face, whether that might be a stipend, a bus pass, help them to get their driver's license, various identifications to get certifications and so forth. We're also very excited about the GPEAK essential skills training, because each nonprofit or each community-based organization has their own kind of life skills curriculum. And what GPEAK does is it will provide us all the opportunity to have the same kind of curriculum that's uniform. So an employer will then know that an individual who has a badge or a certificate in a certain skill set, they will have an idea of a uniform curriculum that everyone has mastered. The Urban League was proud to pilot that curriculum this summer. And what we're really looking to do is to kind of provide a continuum of service. So we want to take those individuals that have multiple barriers, we want to eliminate those barriers as best we can and move them along a continuum or a spectrum to get a job. And then once they get that job, we want to move them on to be the future trained workforce for our region. What we did as a committee, and there are various different organizations, partner organizations you see there. We have Career Link, Community Workshop and Training, Friendship House, Goodwill, ICC, METEC, Neighborhood House, PCCEO, Phoenix Community Development Services, the Urban League, Southside Mission, and Unity Point Health. And what we have done is set up some measurement outcomes that we want to move individuals through. So we have 3 different groups, because each of these social service agencies serves a different population, but they are the same in the sense that they are less credentialed than the average workforce, and we want to get them to that credentialed skilled level. So the first group, we want to work with them with intake and assessment, and we want them to be able to apply for some kind of income, because some of these agencies work with individuals that have no income whatsoever. They might be homeless, they might have multiple barriers to success. So the first step is to get them some kind of income. Then people will move from that group, we hope, into the next group, Group B, which would be those individuals who are able to get a minimum wage job. And then we will provide career coaching, financial literacy, life skills training, everything that they need to stabilize their life. So then they move on the spectrum to get some stackable credentials, hopefully get a promotion while they retain that job for 30, 60, 90 days to Group C. And that's the group that with extensive case management and career and credit coaching, we hope that they would pursue career pathways to a family sustaining wage job. And ultimately, once they get into Group C, then they would hopefully move to the upskilling group that Sheila talked about as well. So you see the continuum from taking them where they are, let's move them along to the future regional workforce that's credentialed with a livable wage job. Our future steps are tracking individuals, implementing the GPEAK system that has been piloted, and then trying to reach our outcomes. As you can imagine, COVID kind of threw a wrench for all of us, so we're kind of trying to stabilize as a committee, but those are our future goals to move us forward. And at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Leanne Brown, who will take us to next steps.
Thank you, Laraine and Bryson and Dr. Sheila Quirk-Bailey for that great overview. Thrilled to see so many faces out there. Certainly last year kicking off the big table and continuing the momentum. So thank you for your time and joining us. And thank you to Dr. Sheila Quirk-Bailey and Laraine Bryson for framing up all the great things that have been taking place since our last big table, and really helping us have that framework, collaboration, action steps, and those measurements. Really, workforce conversation is about meeting people where they are and guiding them forward. So thank you for setting the stage today. And now we are going to break everybody out into their breakout rooms. You will have a facilitator and a small group to have a detailed conversation over the next 30 minutes. Your screen should prompt you right over to your breakout. If you do receive a pop-up message, feel free to click that for join breakout, and you'll be automatically over to your new group to hopefully meet some new faces and have a wonderful conversation. And we'll see you back as a full group here in about 30 minutes. The main room, seeing everybody come back into the Zoom, it kind of feels like the new opening gates at Disney of watching the faces pop back in. So great to still have everybody out there, and hope you had wonderful, engaging conversations. We are eager to hear from your groups. This is the portion that's all about the big table, is hearing from you and gathering your insights and thoughts. Certainly as workforce, it's been a year of a lot of changes with workforce. So we look forward to some of that information as well. So without delay, we're going to move through our facilitators. And facilitators, if you can put in the chat box when you are ready to report out, if you know your group number, please include that, and we'll move through that list and have you report out. And facilitators, remember, we want to hear the key important topic that really surfaced from your group. So we want to make sure we get through everybody. So, and we'll start moving through the chat. Joshua, did you want me to call through here, or do you want me to move through that?
Yes, that's fine. As
All right.
in the chat, you can just call the names.
Sounds great. Okay, well, we're going to start with Andy Diaz, Group 3.
Yeah, so Group 3 had a great cross-section of folks who actually have a good background in some of the workforce training, and we talked about the chasm that has come because of COVID, and getting not just the hardware, laptops and computers into people's home, but addressing the software or the infrastructure as well. So we need to make sure that folks who are looking for help have the computer to actually sign in and put in their application. And so it's addressing some of that, whether it's through community programs, through private corporations. It's going to have to be a fix brought about by partnership with everyone.
Great, thank you for those comments. And we will move to Group 11, Jim Hollenbach.
Yeah, thank you, Leanne. Great discussion as well. First thing, I think everybody was on board with the structure for the Workforce Alliance. The organizational chart seemed to work. We keyed in on the multiple barrier committee. That group of very vulnerable people had a lot of good discussion, input. We've got some local organizations that are already working in that marketplace, and love seeing that they're going to get a voice and attention and goals and benchmarks they can measure against. Discussion that not all of the work remote has been negative, that it's actually with the use of technology might lower the barrier of access for some people with either physical or developmental disabilities, or we can craft jobs that they can be successful at and that'll contribute to their employers at a high level. And then talked a little bit about just some of the different barriers, the transportation issues, the lack of, an example, mentors, and also potential barriers such as having a criminal record or having substance abuse, and just need to address all of those things. So thank you.
Great. Thanks for that summary. We'll move to group 10. Andre Allen, please.
Hello, everyone. Reporting out for group 10, we had a very robust conversation. We had a good mixture of lifelong Peorians. We've had some imports who have stayed in Peoria, and they were all excited to be a part of the discussion today, wanting to make a difference. Some even noted how they know that they have privilege and they want to use that privilege in order to be an ally, to really empower those from our underrepresented communities, which I thought was great. Regarding the Regional Workforce Alliance, we appreciate the great work that they are doing. We definitely wanted to just ensure that we are looking to dismantle barriers of social injustice that exist in our region. We need to ensure that we are addressing those issues of implicit biasness and those prejudices that do exist, that we understand that we are working towards to correct. We need to ensure that we are reviewing our hiring practices and policies to ensure that there are no unintentional biases that could exist that can enable someone from having a position. We need to make sure that we have mentoring and coaching at the professional level, especially for our employees that are maybe from those underrepresented communities that might need some of that mentorship in order to be successful. And we also need to make sure that we are finding ways to enable our workforce that has disabilities that want to work, but they have certain barriers. And we need to make sure that we do our best to make sure they're a part of our workforce. And then lastly, when it came to just the remote learning, we just talked about ensuring our employees have basic computer skills and coaching them on them, especially our older generation. And then also working on some of those interpersonal skills that are needed to be effective in that virtual space. And then we also touched on mental and physical wellness, ensuring that our employees, even though they are remote working, that they know how to unplug from work. I know sometimes I find myself answering emails at 8 o'clock because I'm at home. And also that physical wellness as well too, because I know personally I've gained the COVID-19 working from home, and you need to move around the house and stay out the fridge. So overall, great conversation. Thank you, Leanne. Thanks,
Andre. Always good to see how all of our big table sessions tie in to each other and how they are all very important. And thanks for that healthy tip there. So let's move to group 2. I think we have Becky Rossman.
Yeah, so we had a great group. We had some business owners who are really in need of more skilled labor, as well as people in the nonprofit sector that help people with workforce and even in the educational community. We all talked about the disproportionate barriers that are affecting certain populations, obviously with COVID, and lower socioeconomic classes. But what we're seeing through education is it's affecting students across the board, regardless of where they fall in that socioeconomic class. So we think there needs to be a big focus on helping them, because right now we have that 40% secondary credential, and we're worried that that could, that could cause a further gap between that 40 and 60% in the next few years looking forward. And one of the things we're doing, we talked about at Neighborhood House, because remote learning affects a lot of people. Some of them don't have computers, they don't have access to Wi-Fi. So what we've done is expanded our Wi-Fi half a block around Neighborhood House for people that don't have it. So sometimes that's just allowing people to fill out childcare assistance forms so that they can go to work. If you don't have childcare, you can't go to work. And Gina said that even her husband has that at Peoria Heights Library. So that would be a great component if more people could replicate that to reduce that barrier of technology.
Excellent, good points. Yeah, I think we learned a lot from moving through a pandemic of access. So thank you for those notes. Let's move to group 12, Jamel Wright.
Hello. So the very proud facilitator of group 12, that again was a really great cross-section of social service representatives, those who work with young people in K-12 as well as in higher education. So we had a lot of groups at the table, a lot of voices. I'll hit on a few, just literally a few of the key highlights from our discussion. One was, I think there was a great acknowledgement of, given the number of organizations who were actively participating in the Regional Workforce Alliance, that same group of people has to come together to really have an understanding of truly what this new norm is, and the extent to which it's going to affect workforce and education issues, some of which we've worked on before, but that there needs to be a new level of empathy, that there needs to be a new focus on building confidence and self-efficacy in terms of the workforce, and that we have to make sure that we are ensuring that not only do those in the workforce acquire the skills, but that we ensure a safe environment as well. So really having all of us come together to also reach some consensus of what this all really means. The second piece is really focused on the digital divide, and a couple of really great ideas. For example, again, the Regional Workforce Alliance leveraging that group to possibly come together and have some type of broadband public access internet that we offer and make available. An example was given that Chattanooga offers Wi-Fi to all of its citizens. So maybe taking a page out of Chattanooga's book in terms of offering that Wi-Fi access, and maybe having shared co-working spaces with pods also came up as a really great idea. And then I was also tasked to potentially create a model for organizations to create virtual internships. So we want to continue offering internship opportunities, but how do we really create a model of what that looks like for virtual internships moving forward? So that's three things that I wanted to focus on that I think were really important that came out of our conversation, but there are so many more when you read the notes. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, and definitely one of our goals of returning to better. So thank you for sharing those. And now let's move to group 14, Kelly Schneider.
Hey everyone, I'll just point out a couple of the notes that we've got because I know we want to get to everyone. But so first of all, we talked about we want to make sure that these programs and trainings and opportunities are shared regionally and not just focused on the core of our region. The other thing was, again, talking about the digital divide. You know, it's not necessarily always that someone doesn't have access to the laptop itself, but it's the having equitable access to the internet. And so I know that she had just mentioned, you know, free internet access to all of Chattanooga, which I think is super, super cool. But, you know, so something like that, so we can create more equity there. We did talk a lot about how these programs, you know, how important it is for these programs to be focused on the youth. And starting them at a very young age of recognizing it. These are the opportunities that really are available in the world to you. And now that they know about them, they can start moving towards doing things to get there. And then one of the last points that we had come out, which was really cool, is this is really a career opportunity to work with small businesses in our community as well. This would help both the small businesses as well as educating some of the youth and some of this population. So one idea was maybe doing like a virtual day-to-day operations of a small business that would be shared, you know, again, virtually. But, you know, it's all about creating access to people even learning about the opportunities available.
Absolutely. I think that's one big takeaway, especially last year's big table of learning the resources that are available and how to better leverage them. Thank you. Let's move to group number 4, Angie Howe.
Hello. Some of the takeaways we had in our group that I think haven't been mentioned yet would be, first of all, just a segue off of what Kelly said, the focus on younger students at an earlier age, and helping them understand really the relationship between their future occupation, maybe that credential, and what that might mean for their ability to get and keep a job. Talked about how this doesn't only apply to students who may have less opportunities. Of course, it certainly does, but also there is a gap of people who might end up accidentally or have ended up accidentally over-credentialed and then can't find employment. So then sometimes that credential doesn't have the result that would be needed. So helping them understand at an earlier age what some of the options are and how much it would cost and what would be maybe that return on that college investment sort of thing. But the most unique parts probably of our discussion were about the impact of remote working and the skills needed because of that. So certainly we all are aware access and devices and so forth are very important. But then what happens once the person has the internet access or has the device, then what happens? And really a big need for some education and training regarding communication skills from the very beginning of the job search process, meaning what does it mean to have a remote interview and how different that is from face-to-face. You know, it used to be if someone was in a shelter, it was a matter of making sure they had transportation and a professional outfit to wear to an interview. But that's completely different now for a remote interview. We talked about, imagine being in a shelter and maybe you get Wi-Fi and maybe you find a way, but you're here sitting there trying to do a remote interview in a setting that it would be challenging to have a professional background in on the screen. Taking that from the hiring process to then what happens in the workplace, especially with managers, that many people are not trained or skilled in how to manage a remote workforce or a remote team. And so there's a risk of, you know, burning out employees if someone's being micromanaged or a helicopter manager remotely checking in too many times a day, that there's just really a big need for what does professionalism mean? What kind of communication skills are needed remotely for hiring in the workforce, doing the work, leading the team, and all of that throughout their career journey. That's it for group 4.
Excellent. Thank you, Angie. Yes, definitely some, we'll call it new opportunities to look at. So let's move to group 5, Brandon Lewis.
Thanks, Leanne. We had a great group of representatives across various sectors, nonprofit, parks districts, workforce education, school systems. In regards to the Regional Workforce Alliance, one of the key areas that we wanted to emphasize is the importance of the multiple barriers group, whether it's literacy, life skills classes, case management. One of the phrases that came out of our conversation is seeing everyone who's in the room and the baggage and the barriers that come with those people. We also identified the importance of engaging in career pathway management with ages of people across the spectrum. So older adults being able to give them career pathways or job opportunities that are hands-on, like trade schools. While making career pathways more accessible for members of a younger generation, showing our young people that it's okay to experiment, that it's okay to jump around, to find what your fit is, but most importantly, within the Central Illinois region, of creating pathways and networking together to create pathways for careers to retain people in job opportunities in our region.
Excellent. Thank you, Brandon. I know aging workforce came up yesterday, and so maybe some additional alignment and opportunities to get our active retirees still engaged with our workforce. So thank you. Let's move to group 13. Looks like we had a tag team here, Zach and Carrie. So Zach or Carrie?
We have 2 real good ideas that we can present on. So I'll start with one. Steve from Morton Industries had the suggestion about Halloween, how people will drive all over to go to the hot spots for Halloween and get candy for their kids. Why can't we translate that into some sort of a career option where you're bouncing around from different industry, different facilities? How can we actively get people to approach that as more of a fun event? How do we almost transform career day, career options tours, more access, early education, showing them what the job is going to entail, not just talking to them about it. And Carrie, can you finish the rest?
Sure, yeah, you bet. Yeah, we spoke a lot about the need to not only have a single touch point for Career Spark, which has been an incredible event and helpful for our 8th graders, but really to follow, like having ongoing exposure to careers. So not only in 8th grade, but in high school, and then having opportunities to get exposure across industries, whether that's human services, whether that's manufacturing, education, just for people to actually see what a job is like in the environment of that job itself. And then we also spoke about the need for internet access, to the question about the digital divide, that we need to reimagine seeing internet not as an extra expense that some can afford, but that it's really a basic need. So how do we see that as a utility, and how do we perhaps consider how we could redistribute our tax dollars, or work to address that gap that's something that all students and the workforce, all employees need. So those were some of our big points. Also, to piggyback on what Group 4 talked about, the importance of in this remote learning and working time, just to continue to train our workforce, both our present workforce and our future workforce, about how to communicate effectively with people. So those are the highlights.
Excellent. Love it. Yes. Trick-or-treating. How to find your new favorite candy, AKA job. Let's move to our next group here. Group number 8, Marcia Bolden.
Hey, great afternoon, everyone. I had the pleasure of facilitating the grade 8 today. Lots of notes. Most of our discussion really was related to access, the barrier of technology. But first, we do want to just celebrate the keynotes. We felt like they did a great job really laying out the need and some of the activities that have been taking place so far. Just briefly, we talked about employers. So with creating GPEAK and some of these other programs and strategies, bringing in employers, large and small. What is what's the plan for employers? So how are they adjusting, their expectations, how they're onboarding individuals, in this remote climate, but also as we look at re-credentialing individuals. So they thought that was really key and wanted to hear more about how are employers responding, and what is the plan for moving employers through this process. So maybe that's a suggestion for our next big table discussion. Moving on to another point of information, really looking at the access of technology, almost like how we look at transportation being a barrier for individuals. There is, it seems to be kind of a misconception that everyone has Wi-Fi and you can be on it as long as you want, but not really understanding some of the challenges that come along with that. And so wanted to compliment ICC and Peoria Public Schools. They're doing some very innovative partnerships with Comcast and Xfinity in absorbing some of that cost for students and families to allow them to have access and not really penalize them for being in school, but supporting those families so that they can have access. So I want to thank my group. We have a lot of other notes to add. Thanks, everyone.
Way to go, the grade 8.
Grade 8.
Let's move to group 15, Philip Lockwood.
Well, thank you, everyone. Our group, and looking at the Workforce Alliance, started questioning the need also to address the younger workforce. And that is both a potential younger workforce now and the workforce of the future. In some regions, some families depend upon those who are still in school to have a job to support the family. And that may in turn start to take them away from continuing with their education. So what are the alternatives for that? But the other is the awareness with respect to alternatives with respect to career choices. For some, there's this bias that in order to succeed, you must have a college or university degree, but there are an abundance of opportunities in the skilled trades, but also looking forward as it relates to even the whole world of entrepreneurship. In some cases, if someone has an idea, they need support in nurturing that. And then the other has to do with the whole impact of remote. Remote learning is actually has an issue from the standpoint of diminishing the opportunity to support and build the soft skills necessary for the workplace. But also remote working is starting to set back, especially women in the workforce because they are trying to maintain their job and serve as the primary caretaker, and even in some cases the teacher's assistant. So part of it does mean that what can be done, and this is as a result of sort of the lack of a full-fledged childcare system. But again, that the whole thing was an emphasis on the fact that youth and that needs to start earlier and earlier with the aspect of making them aware, knowledgeable, and excited about careers that they may not even be aware of because of their family background and status. And that works both ways. Family background and status may be saying, oh, you must go to college or university, and we have the means, and the student has no interest in that. So it's not just those with lack of means, it's even those with means that don't have the awareness.
Excellent. Thank you, Philip. And yes, definitely something we have heard since last year, and making sure our youth are well aware of their opportunities and that there are multiple pathways. So thank you. Let's move to group 16, Dawn Coelzo.
Hello. Yes, I can share some of the takeaways from group 16. We had a wonderful discussion. One of the group members threw out a statement, economic development is workforce development. And so we were really applauding the work of the RWA and the 3 subcommittees that were formed, and recognize how important this work is for our community and for the economy. Looking at the scope and the focus of the RWA, we agree that these 3 subcommittees are still very important in the coming year, and probably with a focus on those younger individuals in our community that are looked at in the emerging workforce committee, knowing that before, when we have a competitive job market, employers are focusing on maybe offering internships and things like that to the high school students, but that when unemployment hits, it might be more difficult to organize those types of internships and things like that for practical-based learning opportunities for the high school students. And so we're concerned about that, and think that the work of the Emerging Workforce Committee will be really important. There was a suggestion from our committee members and some questions regarding how is the RWA communicating their outcomes, their improved services, their ideas to individuals in our community, because everyone was very impressed with what they heard, but feel like we could go the next step and share that information with individuals in our community. And then we talked about remote working and skills needed. And I loved, we had a good discussion around lots of things, flexibility, stress management, maybe how to get rid of Zoom fatigue and everything else, but that there is a real need for true computer literacy, deep level of understanding of the technology and its capabilities, and how important that's going to be for the future.
Excellent. Thank you for sharing that. And yes, Zoom fatigue. So everybody get up and move around here after we exit our time together. And definitely couldn't agree more on you can't have development without workforce. So thanks for those comments. And let's move to group 9 and possibly our final group, group 9, James Dyer. James, or anybody from group 9?
Sorry, I was muted.
That's all right. It always gets you.
All right, I hit the video button instead of the mute button there. But I just want to give a shout out to the fine group 9. It was a great diverse group of different backgrounds. We started out talking about the difficulty sometimes in getting gainful employment upon college graduation due to lack of work experience. So there's a need there for more internships and opportunities while in school. Even at the high school level, there should be an increase in the number of partnerships with the public and the private sector. Businesses and government agencies are important there, more co-ops and things like that. With respect to working remotely or studying remotely, we feel that organization and communication is really key to being successful at that. We don't see the remote working going away even after the pandemic, because it seems to be a new way of productivity and workforce participation. Although from the studying aspect, we all agree there's no substitution for the face-to-face interactions and the social interactions that are required to be successful. Just have to be able to do that remotely and have a good mix of it down the road in the future. We did also discuss the disparities in different homes for studying remotely, and solutions to that other people have already mentioned. Sufficient electronics and internet, maybe mobile hotspots going around to neighborhoods that need them in the short term until we can develop infrastructure so the Wi-Fi is there long term. Pretty much everything else we discussed was covered by other groups, so I won't repeat it. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you, James. And yes, definitely want to make sure our graduates are aware of the opportunities available for them. Anybody else? Did I miss any facilitators out there? So go ahead and unmute yourself and report out.
Leanne?
Maybe group, yeah, group.
I don't know what group we were, but.
Are you group 1?
I think so.
Oh, great. We'll go with group 1.
Yeah, anyway, a lot of things were. 7? There we go. Well,
7. Well, you know.
Lucky 7. There we go. Lucky
Yeah.
7. I'm a slow learner. Okay. A lot of things that has been mentioned we've already talked about, but I'll just summarize real quick. Internet access, concern about students at home learning. They're going to learn at different levels and how they're going to be trained for the workforce by that. So that's a concern. The non-travel to conferences, meetings. Sometimes you don't get the same quality over the Zoom that you would the interaction at a conference. That's also going to directly impact a lot of the employers in the area, the hotels, restaurants, things such as that. And then how to work remote, because some folks have, they've experienced it, but they're still probably learning. The brick and mortar challenges or changes, not as many office spaces are going to be needed. So that's going to be a concern going down the road. Let's see, the overall experience of working in a set office setting or a manufacturing, whatever the case, the teamwork, just working with people, the skills that you need there. So the social aspect of it. One other thing that was brought up was the ethnic and language barriers that are important, that are needed because of different ethnic backgrounds, and the languages that are needed, say in the medical fields when folks come in to be treated. One thing that we touched on too was the mental health aspect of this, what this COVID has done, the anxiety and the depression, what's been created. And that's a big thing going on right now. I know a lot of the clinicians and counselors are being maxed out, and they don't have enough to take care of what's out there and the needs that people have. So I think going forward, that's going to be a real issue that we're going to be faced with. Then a lot of the skilled work needs that can't be done remotely, like driving a nail or, hooking a wire up somewhere. And, that's in the skilled trades, but then also manufacturing, working on machines such as that. So that takes care of that one. And then a shout out to the Career Spark. That was a great thing where, the students were able to come and talk to the employers one-on-one view a lot of the things that they were doing. So that's something that's going to be, I believe, sorely needed. And I don't know if that's something we could, you know, film and present to the schools. You know, that might be a possibility.
Excellent.
You know, just do it, yeah, that way.
Wonderful. Thank you, Rick. Yeah, definitely remote learning from multiple aspects, education for youth and adults, a lot to help people move through on that. So maybe group one, do we have still group one to report?
Yeah, thank you. Our group, you know, had representatives from a variety of industries that we're excited to see what both GPEAK and the Workforce Alliance will do at some critical junctures of workforce development. And we talked about a lot of things that have been covered already, but while my group was met with a motivated set of current employees for the future talent pool, we still need to find ways to teach that personal accountability, especially in the remote spaces. And how do we tackle learning about organizational culture and the importance of contributing to it without them being exposed to or experiencing that in person.
Excellent. Thank you for that summary. I know we have a lot of great notes out there, and thank you everyone for participating, sharing your thoughts. I'm going to turn it over to Joshua to wrap up, and thanks again. Good to see everybody.
Yes, thank you, Leanne. Great job moderating. You did much better than me yesterday. You were able to get all of the people to report out today. So great work there. And great job to all of our table facilitators. Thank you, everybody, for participating. I mean, this is just, it was an excellent conversation today. I want to share with everyone in the Peoria region, as someone who just got here from outside about 3 months ago, just the value of what's happening in the big table. And we can't take this for granted. These types of conversations are not happening in most communities across the country. This is not something that certainly wasn't happening in the community I came from, where you have people from all different backgrounds getting together to tackle really, really big problems and challenges for the community. So I just want to applaud everyone here in Peoria for being committed to these types of conversations, all the organizations that are doing the work already, and everyone who is contributing. This is special and something for all of us in this region to be really, really proud of. So we'll continue this tomorrow. We'll be talking about innovation and entrepreneurship, another very important piece of how we create jobs and opportunities in our community. So I'm ecstatic about that. We'd love to see you all there again, bigtablegp.com if you want to join us. Thanks to all the partners and everyone who participated. We will see you tomorrow.